The narrative around this title race, and particularly what Real Madrid have done in terms of their public statements coming out against the referees, has really set the storyline of a lot of investigation and inspection on all these decisions that the referees make over the course of these games, because they have kind of become the story.
Here's what that result did to the La Liga title race. Barcelona started the day, as we said, in third in the table, now top on goal difference from Real after 24 games, both on 51 points, but that plus 40 goal difference doing the job for Barcelona. Guys, let's talk about those couple of contentious decisions in the first half. One led to a goal, one the ball ended up in the back of the net, but it wasn't a goal. Let's start, and we'll go through in chronological order. We'll start with the Barcelona penalty. He kind of looked like he wanted to sniff his aftershave. He was pretty close to it. It was a bit rugby, as you said. But in the end, do you think it was the right call?
Look, I think it is, and I've been there before where I've gotten caught out of position, and it's panic stations as a player, where when you have your arms, and you said rugby tackle, which is the perfect, it's like you're a broadcaster, Woody. It's like the perfect description of what was happening. I don't care if the goalkeeper was going to get it. If you do that, you are always going to get called, especially in the VAR era. As soon as the referee was called to look at the monitor, this looks criminal. It doesn't matter if you have a Rayo Vallecano shirt, a Barcelona shirt, Atleti shirt, Real Madrid shirt. This is always going to be a penalty. You should not do that. You always have to get your positioning right, and he gets caught.
It's also the thing, Chris, where when you see it, a still image there or slowed down, it looks terrible, doesn't it? Because he's all over him. Without question, that's what they're going to be looking at on VAR. And I think the thing that is contentious about this decision, there's nothing contentious about this is a foul. Does this have anything to do with the play? Because the goalkeeper comes out, punches it, Inigo Martinez is getting nowhere near it. And so I think that's the only doubt. But again, by the very basic rubric of football, it is a foul. It occurs in the penalty area. Therefore, it is a penalty, and there's no doubt about my mind that it should have been given as a penalty. The question for the Rayo Vallecano goal that was disallowed was whether or not the player was impacting the match. That's a bit of a grey area. What's your view?
Look, this is the phase of play that VAR, I have beautiful dreadlocks, and this is where my dreadlocks go grey, because the ruling that you start looking at the different phases is you look at the striker, Randy Inteke, right in the box on this play. If he turns directly, he's offside, but he's going to go back towards that Barcelona line. Barcelona, they like to keep a high line. They like to draw people and opponents offside. But as we see this clip play, we're going to see the fact that he interferes with the run of Inigo Martinez. And that's where you have to rule against him impeding in the play. If he doesn't let Martinez, if he lets Martinez run through clean, then this goal will stand. But he is interfering with it, even though he's not turning around to play and get a shot off. This is still interference of the ensuing goal.
Well, I guess the question is, how long is the phase of play? Because it was about 5 seconds after the initial ball comes in. And again, if you're kind of doing it on the basis of, well, what was the actual outcome of what happened? It seems unlikely, given the relative positions, that Inigo Martinez, even if the striker isn't in the way, is getting to block that ball anyway. But again, it just comes down to the examination of these decisions. You're surprised based off the judgment call that the referee doesn't go over and have a look on the VAR monitor, but clearly the VAR didn't decide that it was a clear and obvious error. It is just one of those. And look, going back to the shirt pulling incident, there were a couple that Barcelona could have had called against them. Pau Cubarsí had one where he was pulling the player down, and it just wasn't enough contact. There's a handful of shirt from Hector Fort, who I think was one of the talking points in this game, playing for Jules Koundé, who was dropped to the bench for the game because of an incident off the field. And so there are all these things going on. And one of those games where there are 4 or 5 incidents and the referee's at the middle of it all. On this one in particular, I think just about the right decision gets made. But it was definitely a let-off for Barcelona, who at times were exposed in this game from a defensive point of view. Rayo Vallecano more than had their chances and probably deserved a goal from this game.
Most of the incidents came in the first half. It was really action-packed. In the second 45, we also had one incident, that Dani Olmo penalty shout. For me, when I saw it real time, I thought, well, for sure that's a penalty.
Yeah, look, I thought the same thing. And the only thing, if you're looking at this, and let's not forget that they didn't even go to the monitor for this originally, right? And we were looking incredulous at this. But looking at Dani Olmo, looking at when the contact is made there, what I could see the referee thinking is, what does Dani Olmo do next? He does look to land that first foot down before he goes down in a heap. If Dani Olmo would have dragged his feet, as you're taught to do in the dark arts of the game, and he goes down first without landing contact on the next foot, then I could see a world where it's no doubt whatsoever. But I agree with you, and I think we're all agreement at the desk. This is a penalty. It should have been a penalty, and it should have been reviewed. I didn't understand why it was just play on. We don't want anything to do with this.
For me, it kind of feels like a moment where the referee just sort of decided, I've had enough with being the main story of this game. We're going to let the players decide this, because in my judgment, this is very similar to the Luis Diaz incident on Sunday for Liverpool against Wolves. And for me, just as with that play, I think it's about the goalkeeper getting beat. He commits, he slides, he doesn't win the ball. Danny Olmo won the ball. He got beat. And even if you don't make a massive amount of contact, if you commit, you stick a boot out, and you hit the player, that for me is a penalty. So I really do think there was a certain amount of the referee going, look, all the conversation around the Jude Bellingham red card for saying F off instead of F you, with the Barcelona incident happened earlier in the game, with the incident here and the incident there, I think the referee just kind of decided, I'm done being the story here, and didn't give it. I'm surprised that the VAR doesn't flag that up as a clear and obvious error, because again, for me, it's a foul that occurs in the penalty area. It should be given as a penalty, but instead, Barcelona were hanging on to the very end of that game to go on and win the 3 points and go top of the league. And there were all these things that happened over the course of the game. And I think in some ways, we are talking about them. We are kind of feeding into this. But the narrative around this title race, and particularly what Real Madrid have done in terms of their public statements coming out against the referees, has really set the storyline of a lot of investigation and inspection on all these decisions that the referees make over the course of these games, because they have kind of become the story.
In terms of the title race, it kind of feels to me like you got 3 big heavyweights going, toe to toe in the ring. Was this a big moment in the title race and the way it swayed towards Barcelona? Because the pressure was on them. Obviously, they'd seen what had happened to Real Madrid and Atletico over the weekend. Could they get it done? And the answer was, it wasn't always the most convincing, but yes.
Look, each of these teams are dealing with different things that have let them down. Real Madrid, disciplinary issues have let them down yet again. For Atleti, it's been Antoine Griezmann at times who's let them down. Look, he's a brilliant player, but when he doesn't show up for them, they're a completely different side, and there's been some matches he hasn't. For Barcelona, it's been being at the summit, and then it's the mid-table teams. It's the teams in the relegation battle. It's teams that have the DNA of a Rayo Vallecano that they go and they lose, especially in their last 2 matches coming into this. Their last 2 losses have come at this very stadium. And it brings me to this. I love the fact that Hansi Flick, he made an example out of one of his go-to guys in Jules Koundé prior to the match. And that sets a tone that we cannot lose our grip. We cannot lose our focus right now. And it wasn't pretty. It wasn't beautiful. But they'll have a big test against Atleti coming up in a few weeks' time.
And we saw as well in another league, obviously in Ligue 1 and in the Champions League for PSG, a similar situation happened with Ousmane Dembele much earlier on in the season, where he was, late for training, bit of disciplinary issues. He was pulled out of the team by Luis Enrique, and look what's happened to him. So this also shows, from Hansi Flick's perspective, this is that strong management. I don't care where you are in the team, how important you are. I'm not going to settle for any of this kind of nonsense.
Well, and not even where you are in the team, but also the significance of the game. This was an opportunity for Barcelona to go top of the table. Yes, you're playing Rayo Vallecano at home. That should be a victory. But still, to play another young player, Hector Fort, who is not really one of the La Masia products who we talked a lot about, because Gavi and Pedri and Yamal have all done so much for this Barcelona team. The fact that Hector Fort comes in, plays at right back, and does a job. I don't know if it was as good of a job as Jules Koundé could have done, but I think it's Flick saying it doesn't matter how important this game is or how much we need the 3 points. I still have my standards to uphold. And I think in some ways Flick has taken this job on, which I think a lot of people would have said is kind of a hiding to nothing, because managing this club is very difficult. All the things that go on off the field, the financial issues, the personality issues, you're managing a lot of young players, you're managing a lot of situations, I think, at Barcelona right now. And Flick has very clearly come in and shown, I'm not going to be a pushover. This is going to have a team with my stamp on it. And he's really delivered in terms of results, the quality of the football that they play, the difference in style to a typical Barcelona team, and here showing a real backbone in dealing with these disciplinary issues.
Does this change both of your viewpoint on who will go on and win La Liga this season?
Look, I've always said Atleti are going to win La Liga, and these two sides play against each other. Atleti, they will have played all the big boys just yet. But don't forget, the El Clasico still has an imprint and a saying on this. This could be a title race I think is going to go the distance.
Chris?
For me, I've always kind of felt that Barcelona were the best team in Spain, that they play the most consistent and best football. But I don't think that result today, the question you asked me, is decisive in any way. There's still so many twists and turns. Champions League is going to have a big role to play. The fitness of Real Madrid, particularly from a defensive point of view, is going to have a role to play. The thing that is most fascinating is that we have seen a number of twists and turns already to this point. We're only at the beginning of February, and at one point, Barcelona was sailing clear. Then at one point, Real Madrid was sailing clear. Under the radar, Atleti goes and wins a bunch of games in a row, and now Barcelona has won 4 games in a row, taken advantage of Real Madrid dropping points, and now we are, as you say, going all the way to the end here. For me, I think that Barcelona will just about edge it, but I don't say it with any level of conviction. There's too many things that have happened already to say anything with definition.
And Barca can kick back this midweek and enjoy watching the rest of the team sweat
Sangria.
in the playoffs in the Champions League.